It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.
George Galloway, and the mother of all talk shows. Welcome to the Open University of the Airwaves with George Galloway.
The Emperor Hirohito issues a tweet, datelined Hawaii. We have just destroyed most of your navy. Now is the time for peace. Are we on the brink of World War III? Are the nuclear facilities destroyed? Who is going to strike whom next? It's the mother of all talk shows. Stay tuned.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows. The only education you can get for free. George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway, the world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
By way of deception, make war. That's exactly what's been going on, not for the last 2 weeks, not for the last 2 months, but very much longer than that. It was always the plan that the United States empire, under whichever president, would try to destroy the Islamic Republic of Iran. They tried every which way. They tried sanctions, murderous sanctions, beyond all precedent. But that did not work. They tried terrorism. They tried assassinating nuclear scientists. They tried the sneak attack 2 weeks ago, and they've been lying ever since. Deception was the order of the day, or as Secretary Hegseth said, misdirection. Misdirection is deception. Deception is what Mike Pompeo, the former head of the CIA, told you from his own mouth that he had been doing as the head of the CIA. We lied and we lied and we lied, he said. Any fool who sits down with any emissary of the United States of America now and expects that they are not being deceived, not being lied to, is, well, frankly, an idiot. And that goes for the Russian government in Ukraine. It definitely goes for the Chinese government, over any bilateral conflicts between the USA and China. It went for the Iranians and it goes for the Palestinians in Gaza too. They are one. As Trump told you, actually rather eloquently, when he thanked Netanyahu before thanking the American service personnel involved in last night's operation, as it happens. He thanked Netanyahu. He described them as a team like has never been seen before, he said with his typical hyperbole. Everything's lovelier, biglier, and ever more beautiful, according to Donald Trump. But he was not lying when he said that he and Netanyahu were a team. And this leads me to a point that I have to make, though there are many who disagree with me. The truth is that Israel and America are one. They are one country. The truth was given to you by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. when he described Israel in his presidential run as being an aircraft carrier for the United States in the Mediterranean. That is precisely why Israel was founded, virtue of the Balfour Declaration in 1917, which one of Balfour's cabinet described as being a loyal little British Ulster in the heart of the Arab world. It's no longer a British Ulster, but it is definitely an American one. Its purpose there is to be an aircraft carrier. Its purpose there is to sow division in the East and to help state capture the politics of Western countries. But they are not separate things. They are not separate entities. And the tail doesn't wag the dog. This simple matter of canine biology is beyond a lot of people. I've spent the day arguing about it on Twitter. Tails can't wag dogs. Dogs wag tails. The truth is that the Israelis are a very useful aircraft carrier indeed, well worth the 3 to 5 billion a year in ordinary years that the American taxpayer spends on them. I don't know the cost of a fleet of aircraft carriers, but it would be much, much more than they ordinarily give Israel. And sure, they've given a whole ton of money more than normal years over the last 20 months, almost 21 months, but that was for America's purposes, not for Israel's. I had people arguing to me today that the Mossad infiltrated the Pentagon in 2002. Others argued that the Israelis infiltrated the entire system of United States government in 2002. But that presupposes that the Pentagon was the Salvation Army before 2002. It presupposes that the CIA and the Mossad are two separate, different things. It presupposes that the United States empire prior to 2002 was any force for good or liberty in the world. I've got a queue of names I can give you. 80 countries long, 80 countries long that the United States has invaded since the end of World War II. Invaded or subverted by way of proxy armies, or assisted in the terrorist overthrow, mass murder, assassination, and other means to alter the course of the trajectory of those countries struggling to be free. So Israel can't be blamed for those, you see. It's not Israel that overthrew President Salvador Allende in Chile in 1973. It's not Israel that murdered millions of people in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos in the 1960s and 70s. It wasn't Israel that launched the Korean War. The United States has been a malignant empire since the end of the Second World War. And I could go back. There are only actually 6 years, 6, in the hundreds of years since the American Declaration of Independence in 1776, that America has not been involved in a foreign war. Just 6 years. And prior to the Declaration of Independence, they were shackling millions of slaves to the plow in their plantations. Black slaves, African slaves, and prior to that and alongside that, they were murdering and dispossessing scores of millions of indigenous Americans. None of that is the fault of the Jews. You see, this is the problem with the false dichotomy that Israel has captured the United States and forced its leaders to do their bidding. You go looking for Jews. It presupposes that if there was no Israel, America would be behaving like a charitable St. Francis of Assisi. They would not. They were not. They will never be. America behaves like it is because it is a dominant empire. All dominant empires, including the British, the Roman, the Greek, all dominant empires behave in that way. And they accrue to themselves indispensable parts of other people's territory that they use as mercenaries. And that's what Netanyahu is. He's the American state's mercenary. And he has led to a situation where the unsafest place to be a Jew in the world is Israel. No one's going to argue that point, are they? The unsafest time since the Holocaust to be a Jew is now, as a result of Netanyahu's false claim to be acting on the behalf of the Jewish people. Now let's turn to last night's events. According to Channel 13 on Israeli television, the Iranian nuclear program cannot be destroyed by bombs. The IAEA, though they were very quick off the mark, maybe they had people there, declared that there was no trace of nuclear material, emissions, or radiation in the air at the site of last night's bombing. That either means there was no radioactive material there in the first place, or it means it's still extant under the ground and not damaged by the American bombing. What does all that mean? It means that this war will shortly be revealed for what, in fact, it is. It will be revealed as a regime change war. Nuclear was never the issue. Iran signed a nuclear deal with Obama, and it was working perfectly well, according to the IAEA. Iran did not breach one jot or tittle of the commitments that it made in the nuclear deal with the JCPOA. It was Trump that ripped up the nuclear deal. It was Trump that walked away from the negotiating table. It was Trump's ally, mercenary, Israel, which started murdering Iranian nuclear scientists and their families. And at every turn, Iran increased, by way of punishment, the percentage of fissile material that it was enriching. Now, who can blame them? I blame them for not making a nuclear bomb. I exhorted them over and over again to make a nuclear bomb whilst they could. I said to them that nobody will ever attack Pyongyang, but they will attack you precisely because you don't have nuclear weapons. If the nuclear material has not been destroyed, they'll have to attack again, won't they? Or what was the $315 million that was expended last night spent for? What has all this been about if it does not destroy the nuclear material? Of course, what Israeli Channel 13 means is that the only way that you can destroy Iran's nuclear industry is by person, boots on the ground. And that is only possible if you have regime change. They've even appointed the new head of state, that fella in Los Angeles, who's never been in Iran since he was a child. He's the new head of state. And just to throw some sand in the face, there's going to be a Sunni Muslim prime minister. They've got the terrorist group, MK. They've got the Renta mob, Kurdish factions, ready to march on Tehran, but they cannot muster the 1 million strong army that they would require to occupy a country as vast as Iran and destroy a regime with millions, tens of millions of supporters. I get Western liberals on my case saying that people hate the Iranian regime and are only too ready to rise up against it. I wonder if they've ever met an Iranian. I don't mean an Iranian in exile in the West. I don't even mean an Iranian who speaks English and happens to be hanging around a hotel lobby to speak to the journos in the fancy hotels in downtown Tehran. I'm talking about the real Iran, where the real Iranians live. The rural Iran, the religious Iran, the patriotic Iran, who will never agree to allow a 1 million strong army, even if one could be conjured up. And from where could it be conjured up? You think the American people are going to allow Vietnam levels of conscription to go and occupy Iran and welcome the coffins coming back to Arlington day after day? You think the British people are going to do so? The French? Nobody is going to do so. So all they can do is whistle. And that's where I turn to the Iranians. And I hope that they hear me. Don't do anything stupid now. Don't go attacking American bases, which are empty in any case. Don't go killing Americans. That's what they want you to do. Concentrate on what you're doing now. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Enrich your uranium, weaponize it with assistance from friendly countries, so that as an ultimate defense, you have a viable and deliverable nuclear weapon. And concentrate on what you're doing now so dazzlingly effectively, which is reducing the genocidal regime of Israel, of Netanyahu. Reduce it to a palsy. Stop their killing of the Palestinian people in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jerusalem. Stop their killing of the people in South Lebanon. Stop their killing of the people in Syria. An ISIS terrorist backed by Israel just went into a church in Syria, in Damascus, and massacred 10 people, maimed dozens of people, destroyed the altar and the church. A suicide bomber from ISIS in Damascus. Mar Elias Church is the name. I've been in it. They're murdering people throughout the region. Concentrate on reducing them. Trump will find it more difficult then to get involved further, deeper into this maw, into what is potentially, of course, World War III. Spend the next weeks, months reinforcing not just the concrete, but reinforcing your alliances. I was astounded when I heard from President Putin in St. Petersburg that Russia offered air defenses to Iran, and Iran tied them down, turned them down, didn't want them. How foolish that decision now looks. And the reason, presumably, from the reformist president, presumably, was that they did not want to be seen to be putting all their eggs in the Russian basket, because that would send the signal to the Americans that Iran was lost to them forever. Rebuild your alliances. Complete the railroads. Complete the Belt and Road. Weld yourself to the people who actually care about you. And forget about those people who care only about keeping you in servitude. And here is my last point on that. Scorpions sting because they're scorpions. Empires behave like this because they are empires. It's a big job defeating an empire. It can only be done together, only in very exceptional circumstances, like Vietnam. Will anyone be able to defeat the empire on their own, although the Vietnamese people had enormous logistical support and weaponry from the then Soviet Union and from China, and had borders with both of them? It's a difficult job defeating the United States. It has to be done strategically and probably slowly. It will not happen overnight. It's a marathon. When you're running a marathon, you have to pace yourself. And that's my message to them. My message, finally, to the people who were fooled by Donald Trump. People who were fooled into believing that J.D. Vance was having a big fight with Israel in the week, was pushing back, as the current lingo goes. You were all fooled, deceived. Now that Trump's in power, he's behaving in the way that an emperor does. He's a vulgar emperor, an ugly emperor. And that helps us to expose the nature of the empire he leads. We've got big guests coming up. Colonel Douglas Macgregor is first of them. He's up next. Stay tuned. I defy anyone to contradict the point that I just made, that every person alive today was born of woman. So why would we say that the people in the labor wards, in the maternity units, are people who are giving birth? Why can't we say women? Why can't we say mothers? Why can't we say women who are breastfeeding, mothers who are breastfeeding? Why do we need to say people who are chest feeding? All of these words, and indeed all of the trend that you say you dissociate yourself from, of transgenderism, transmania, I call it, are all taking rights away from women.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
There's a record audience watching now. Good evening to each and every one of you. More than 40,000 people are watching the show live right now. 11.9 million people watched the last 2 episodes of the mother of all talk shows, in whole or in part. 11.9 million. Who's got the biggest one now, Piers Morgan? Will Trump take the US into Israel's war on Iran? Well, the overwhelming majority of 44,641 voters so far say yes. And how? And most of them voted before last night's strike. If you want to vote, get voting on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, my Twitter, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. If you're watching us on the YouTube stream, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the show the thumbs up, and share it with all of your friends and contacts. If you want to call the show, and a record number did on Wednesday night, let's see if we beat that record tonight. It's toll-free in the United States and Canada, +1 844 944 3344. It's free of charge in Britain and Ireland, 0808 196 5522, and the worldwide number is 0044 203 966 2625. Our first guest is retired U.S. Army Colonel, author, and defense and foreign policy consultant, Colonel Douglas Macgregor. Colonel, if they'd consulted you before last night, what would your advice have been to them?
Well, there wouldn't have been a strike, and we would not now be at war with Iran. And I think the most important thing for your audience to understand is something that most Americans don't understand, George. The United States is now at war with Iran as Israel's critical and ultimately only real ally. It's very important to understand that, because this is something that Israel, its lobby, and ultimately its agents in the United States have tried to bring on for 30 years. They've now achieved it, which explains why Mr. Netanyahu last night was almost giddy in his response. He knows that he's finally got what he wants, because this war is going to expand. It's going to take time. How long is anyone's guess, and it could have terrible consequences. So I think there was a failure at the policy-making level to understand what they were doing. And if you listen to Trump, this is not a man who wants the war. And so instead of a strike going in, even though this had been rehearsed for innumerable times over many years, even though they'd rehearsed it and practiced it, what they ultimately did was harm nothing and accomplish nothing. They hit the equivalent of empty buildings, empty targets. And then after doing so, he announced that he was now ready for peace, which is the ultimate expression of self-delusion. He now has a full-blown war on his hands. But until the Americans are hurt in some demonstrable way, most Americans will not understand this, and they don't understand it, George.
That's a big mystery. Of course, as I said in my monologue, the IAEA say there's no radioactive material in the atmosphere. There's no sign of emission. And so either there was no material there in the first place, or it did not succeed in getting anywhere near it. And the Israelis are beginning to say that now. Channel 13 this evening said that you cannot destroy Iran's nuclear program by bombs. In which case, why go to war with them?
Well, I tend to agree with you, but there are two things that are now very clear. Number one is that Iran is going to double down on its war with Israel. In fact, within the next 2 weeks, I'd be surprised if Israel is not entirely destroyed. Secondly, Iran is receiving and will continue to receive enormous amounts of aid and support, particularly from Russia and China. Three, the Iranians have now collectively decided to close the Straits of Hormuz. There are 50 oil tankers sitting in the Gulf, packed or filled with oil, ready to transport through the Straits of Hormuz. They're not going to move. They're going to sit there. They are now hostage to the closed straits. What are we in the United States going to do about that? Well, frankly, we don't draw on the oil from the Gulf for the most part. It's not going to make much difference to us, at least in the short run. But this is going to have a terrible impact on the rest of the world. There has been no thinking, once again, about the long-term strategic consequences. There was no thinking about, is this the right way to achieve the aim? Because if you're an Iranian right now, you're going to do everything in your power to build a nuclear weapon. In fact, I would argue that there will be countries all over the world that will now build nuclear weapons because they don't want to be visited by the United States Armed Forces in the middle of the night. We are the threat. We are the rogue state supporting the other rogue state, Israel. And then finally, no mention is being made in this country in any way, shape, or form of what's happening in Gaza. There's a complete failure to understand that Gaza is the catalyst for the larger war that's now going to begin against Israel. Every Muslim country is going to come on board against Israel, along with Russia, along with China. I'd be surprised if Mr. Putin doesn't make it very clear to Mr. Netanyahu that if he contemplates using a nuclear weapon, he needs to understand something. If you do this, if you use a nuclear weapon against Iran or anyone in the Middle East, we will use a nuclear weapon against you. I'd be very surprised if he has not already said that. We don't understand what we've walked into because we're not informed. We still think this is 1991. Listen to the rhetoric. I'm ready for peace now. We've made our point. We hope the Iranians understand us and will make peace. Have you lost your mind? The war is now just beginning.
Yes, it's not the beginning of the end, it's merely the end of the beginning, as Mr. Churchill said. Now, the impact of all this on Donald Trump's popularity, all the hypocrites are coming out. Nancy Pelosi is denouncing this lawless act of brigandry. All the Democrat hypocrites who would have done exactly the same thing. Of course, they represent nearly half of the American people, and therefore how many of Trump's voters now desert him is going to be a huge factor in the midterms, isn't it? Its impact on MAGA is surely going to be significant because this is a total about-face for the Donald Trump that people thought they were electing. This is the man who denounced the Iraq War, who denounced Obama, accused him of being ready to go to war with Iran in order to win an election. This is the Tulsi Gabbard who said just weeks ago that in terms there was no case for this kind of an action. When people do an about-face like that, they must lose a part of their base. How do you quantify that, Colonel?
Well, the desertions from so-called MAGA have already begun because MAGA turns out to have been a myth. Let's be frank, it was never real. People voted for something that was never real. You've got to go back to the Republican National Convention. And during the Republican National Convention, there was a giant Israeli flag on the wall. And there was a placard above the flag that said, Israel first. And then a gentleman walked out to the podium, ostensibly representing the Israel lobby, and tried to lead cheers for Israel first. Well, the response was tepid, to say the least. But the people that voted for Donald Trump didn't understand what they were listening to. The signal was unambiguous and clear. You were voting for Israel first. And that's what you got for a cabinet. That's what you got for a government. Now, as you point out, that applied equally to the other side, regardless of what the other side says. We have a government in Washington that is corrupt to its core. It's corrupt, it's ineffective, it's incompetent. And that's what we are now going to discover in the days and weeks and months ahead. The whole place is going to come apart because this war is going to expand. The family dictatorships that control the Arabian side of the Persian Gulf are not going to survive this. The Saudis are at high risk. Why are they at high risk? Why is King Abdullah in Jordan at high risk? Because there are hundreds of millions of Muslim Arabs that are saying this is unacceptable. This must stop. And you're going to see new governments come online. We are going to lose everything as a result of this overseas. We are inevitably going to be driven out of the Middle East, the thing that everyone said we were fighting to prevent. And we're going to watch Israel be destroyed day after day after day. In other words, the world is going to be turned upside down. Everything that we've supposedly worked for decades will be lost. Now, in the long run, this is a damn good thing for us. We need to get out of these places. We need to come home. And we haven't even talked about the potential for really bad things to happen inside the United States. Set aside the very likely financial meltdown that is coming. As soon as we start to lose troops, men, people, ships, anything, you're going to see the stock market react very negatively. That's not just the market, but we have the bond market. You're going to watch the interest rates rise. We're going to try and suppress the inevitable inflation that results. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen. And as these things grow worse, the demand here at home for change in everything. Most important, change overseas. Come home. No more wars. That pressure is going to be overwhelming. Doesn't matter who is in Washington and what they say. They're all going to confront this. So this is a in the language of fools in Washington, a game changer, as though this were a game. This is a strategic sea change. We don't get it, and we're not going to get it until all of the bad things happen that are coming. And by the way, there are a lot of people that are in the intelligence business that are professional who are now worried about terrible things happening here inside the United States. Our borders were open for years, George. We don't know who's in the country. We have people worried about the explosion of a dirty bomb inside our borders. And we should be worried, extremely worried. But until these things happen, the American people will not really wake up. They may walk away from Donald Trump and say, what a mistake we made, but they're not going to demand real action until they're hurt. That's coming.
As the meme says, doesn't matter who you vote for, you get John McCain. Do you think there was any real opposition inside the leadership on this, or was that too deception?
I have trouble believing anything that comes out of the government these days. I have to be frank. I know there's an awful lot of theater that goes on to try and entertain people and make them think something's happening that isn't. These people are feckless. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand what they've done. There's not a shred of humanity in any of them. One look at Gaza alone should be enough to drive people completely out of the region and say, no more cooperation, no collaboration against anyone with Israel until Gaza stops. It never comes up. It's not on television. And if it's not on television for most Americans, it probably doesn't exist.
Finally, Colonel, and here I draw on your diplomatic and other skills. If I were a Russian leader, and Mr. Witkoff, say, or Mr. Rubio came to talk with me, I would have difficulty keeping a straight face as they made commitments or expressed intentions, because I would say, I've just watched you in real time deceive your own people, deceive the world about your true intentions with regard to Iran. Isn't this a potential death blow to American credibility diplomatically?
Absolutely. No one believes anything we say anymore. So that would be a complete waste of time. No one believes that we can be trusted any longer. This is a death blow for that purpose. In the meantime, though, the Russians are bearing down on Kiev. Large numbers of their troops are moving offensively to the west. They're going to cross that river. They will move on Kiev, and they will move south towards Odessa. That's a foregone conclusion. And they can do that while they simultaneously support and assist Iran. I guess Russia just isn't as weak, backward, and incompetent as everybody said. And by the way, neither is Iran.
No, absolutely correct. But what about China? Might this be an opportune time for China to make a move on reunification with Taiwan?
China doesn't have to do that. Taiwan will voluntarily join China. That's a lot of nonsense. Neither the Chinese on Taiwan nor the Chinese on the mainland are interested in going to war with anybody for any reason. They're all about business. Their long-term goal is to end up looking a lot like Singapore. That's their model. This is not a warlike nation by any stretch of the imagination. Somebody was telling me the other day, doesn't President Trump understand the reason so many of our ships are so rusty is that they are at sea all the time? He keeps pointing to the Chinese ships, says they're not rusty. Well, of course they're not rusty because they spend most of their time in port. Well, if you spend most of your time in port as a Navy, how good are you? The Chinese are not interested in a war. That's all crap. But the Chinese are very interested in doing business. And you pointed to BRICS, and you pointed to the one belt, one road, and you're 100% correct. Iran is vital and essential to that project. And it's also vital and essential to Russian national security because it touches the soft underbelly of Russia, which is Central Asia. Iran is not going to be allowed to lose. There will be no defeat of Iran. So if we double down on this, as I'm sure we'll try to do, we won't have any choice because we're going to be the recipients of retaliation. It's not going to work.
Thank you, as always, for a masterful tour of that horizon. Colonel Douglas Macgregor, retired U.S. Army Colonel, author, and defense and foreign policy consultant. How I wish Colonel Macgregor had been in the White House over this last few days. Let's take a quick break, then it's your calls. Coming up is Colonel Richard, two colonels in the same show in Texas on Iran, US. Don't miss it.
A new dawn has broken, has it not?
He had that Clinton thing. His eyes were round and big and smiley, and he was very charming.
He became this incredible pop idol kind of prime minister.
I think most people who have dealt with me think I'm a pretty straight sort of guy, and I am.
New Labour was backed by the most powerful media interests because they realised he was representing them.
He was caught red-handed trading policy in return for hard cash from a businessman.
America has no truer friend than Great Britain.
Both Bush as well as Tony Blair are now wanting to plunge the world into a holocaust.
J.P. Morgan paid him off for the Iraq War. The man is a war criminal.
Is Tony Blair a war criminal? In my opinion, yes.
Most definitely.
The pursuit of money has become the dominant theme in your life.
All these relationships are, in most people's estimation, corrupt relationships.
No previous Labour Prime Minister has behaved in this shameful, money-grubbing way.
How do you sleep at night? It's that. It's as a person.
You get my films, by the way, gratis if you support me on Patreon, patreon.com/George Galloway. That's how we pay for our midweek show. We have no other means other than your generosity as a vast audience. There's 58,000 people watching this live right now, 58,000 live. And there will be, if it's anything like the last two shows, many millions to come. So we need you to either support us through patreon.com/George Galloway or moats.tv, which has its own donation portal, which is very, very easy to use. Will Trump take the US into Israel's war on Iran? Now 55,000 people have voted. Get your vote in now. Let's go to Texas and talk with our friend, Colonel Richard. Colonel, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
Well, George, I hope I can make a couple of points real quick, because something Colonel Macgregor said triggered something. In one of his interviews with Tucker Carlson, he made the point that we don't know exactly how many, but a significant number of the Javelin missiles that Trump gave to Ukraine during his first term were sold on the black market and have ended up in the hands of the Mexican drug cartels. We don't know how many of the 1,000 or so Al Qaeda trained terrorists that were smuggled into the United States have those missiles. Now, everybody thinks of them as only an anti-tank missile, but they can also be used as an anti-air missile, and they have a 2.5 to 3 mile range. Now, along the Texas Gulf Coast and Louisiana Gulf Coast, we have a tremendous concentration of oil refineries and LNG terminals. Just think what can be done with Javelin missiles fired from standoff range, and we don't have enough troops to guard those facilities. That's what I worry about.
Well, Colonel, I warned throughout this Ukraine war that the practice of pouring weapons into the most corrupt country in Europe, as it was adjudged to be by the most august journals in Europe before the beginning of this war in Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe, now having at its disposal billions upon billions of dollars of often portable weaponry. What do you think is going to happen? And from what you say, amongst the consequences is that the cartels have now got many of these weapons. Do make your second point, Colonel.
My second point was a point that Garland Nixon made last night. He said that the Iranians should go to the United Nations and say, all right, we are complying with the United States' demand to give up our ballistic missiles. We're doing it one salvo at a time.
Okay, Colonel, you nearly had me there. Thank you very much indeed for that call. Colonel Richard in Texas. You can scan the QR code right now and leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Chris Moyo did. Trump thinks himself a beautiful dictator, a golden dictator who cracks the whip wonderfully like no other. And Ian McKillop says you could go back even further. How about the theft of the Philippines in 1898? I could go all the way back to the halls of Tripoli. The US ruled it as a colony until 1946. And by the way, Ian, a colony, it's on its way to being again. Wool Fantunbi says Merz showed Trump his great-grandfather's birth certificate was a calculated move to let Trump know you can't say no to us. And Patsy Maximus says, is it also a coincidence that Israel has increased the rate of slaughter in Gaza since they bombed Iran, including many waiting for food at aid sites that they were told to go to in order to alleviate famine, and in which scores have now been murdered, if not hundreds. Hamza the historian says, I'm a Middle East expert and an American. America will undoubtedly lose to Iran. They can collapse our economy in less than a month via Hormuz and the Red Sea. Let's go to California, where Shaf wants to talk about Trump. Shaf, welcome. What do you want to say?
Hello. So I'm an avid Trump supporter. Well, I was until, I've been sending him emails and messages, and sometimes I get a response, sometimes I don't. But the most recent response was in regards to, what's going on in Gaza and how Netanyahu's probably going to start bombing Iran. I sent this before he bombed Iran, and then a few days later, I received a message from the president saying, we are 100% Israel supporters, and everything we do is for the glory of Israel, basically. And I posted that. I just posted the screenshots of that today on my Facebook and my Twitter. But anyways, and basically, everything I said ended up happening, and it's ruining President Trump's legacy, in my opinion, because, as a whole, Muslims decided, Kamala Harris would not be able to do anything to stop Israel. So we supported Trump. and everybody voted basically for Trump through, the guise that he was going to try and prevent everything that's going on in Gaza. And now we have multiple fronts that are being battled against Islam through the propaganda that is posted daily on Twitter. And in regards to that, I tried to report some of the propaganda that gets put on Twitter, and all of my reports came back as no action taken. But when I posted a big write-up about, Israel and their actions, that got censored right away. And after that, my views on Twitter went from, a little bit that I was getting to absolutely nothing now. And, that's fact to the testament that, Israel is controlling everything that goes on in American politics. And that's not America first at all.
No, it's not it's not Israel that's controlling it. It's the people who support Israel that are controlling it. And the people who support Israel are both of the sides of the Uni Party. It's in the American empire's interest to support Israel. And they ruthlessly enforce it in the ways that you've just been talking. Iran committed two great sins, and none of them have anything to do with nuclear. After all, when the Shah wanted to go nuclear, the American company Westinghouse successfully bid for the project to build the nuclear plants in Iran. The two big sins of Iran are, first of all, they are the only state, Yemen being a partial state, and others being liberation movements, resistance movements. Iran is the only state that took action to defend the Palestinian people in Gaza and to contest the absolute domination of Israel in the region. That's its number one sin. Its number two sin is that it is an indispensable linchpin in the new world that is being born. Russia, China, Iran, the Belt and Road Initiative, the North-South Corridor, the means of breaking free from hundreds of years of Western hegemony require as a hinge a free, sovereign and independent Iran. Ergo, if you destroy Iran's sovereignty and independence, you create one hell of a problem for the development of the new world. Thanks, Shaf. It's been a huge week, I must say. You've been really generous this week. A big thanks to this week's top donors who went to the moats.tv website and donated. Sally Soriano, Otto Calvo, Wilma Williams, and Richard Finkelstein. And you know who you are, John. Thank you very much indeed. On such a big weekend, your support is particularly welcome. Please do become a Moats donor tonight. Moats.tv is the place to do it. Ali is in England, in Leeds, on the same subject. Go ahead, Ali.
Hello, Mr. Galloway. How are you?
By the grace of God, good. Thanks for calling. What do you want to say?
So I know you've got time constraints, so I'll just give you my direct assessment. I'm actually an Iranian, and I actually live in England, born and bred. So I get feedback from Iran itself, so I know the situation. So what the US did was completely illegal. It was unlawful, and it's an impeachable offense what they did. And under the US Constitution, only Congress has the authority to declare that war. And this was an unauthorized act of aggression against a country that posed no immediate threat. So Trump bypassed Congress, unilaterally started a war based on fabricated pretexts, violating both domestic and international law. Now, this entire operation, in my opinion, was primarily a regime change strategy, using nuclear proliferation as the pretext. And they tried to do it quick and efficient. If the regime changed, then the secondary objectives were to further cripple the Iran's economy, sanction the economy, and ultimately bomb nuclear facilities to provoke a retaliatory strike, which obviously hasn't happened yet. That will give the US justification for full-scale military intervention. But here's the farce. The strikes achieved absolutely nothing. Fordow wasn't even damaged. Iran had already moved the 60% enriched uranium elsewhere. The US dropped 6 bombs that made just holes in the ground. So in my opinion, this was a big PR stunt to brainwash the public media and the public in the US. A wag the dog spectacle while risking catastrophic retaliation and committing a blatant war crime. Now, we know Iran removed the nuclear material in advance. They even told us weeks ago, so they'll just enrich elsewhere. They also didn't strike Bushehr because Putin warned he had scientists there, meaning Moscow was tipped off beforehand. This attack was planned under Biden, executed under Trump, and serves no strategic purpose except escalation. The playbook is coherent here.
That's right. And what they're going to do next, though, Ali, because they're not going to change the regime in Iran by such theatre. So what do you think they're going to do next?
It really depends what Iran does, to be honest. If Iran attacks the US bases, it will give them an excuse to come in and start a ridiculous war, which, in my opinion, unless they're willing to put 1.5 million troops on the ground, is a war they can't win. It's Afghanistan times 1,000. There's no way in hell they can invade Iran. And I know Iranians who hated the government, absolutely despised the government. Even those guys are now backing the government. It's completely backfired.
Yeah. As predicted on here, it's a pity the decision makers weren't watching. Thanks, Ali, for that insight from an Iranian born and bred in England. Now, look, breaking news. For the first time ever, the MOATS podcast is in the top 30 in the UK for politics. Now, if you think that includes the BBC, ITV, Sky, and all the rest, we are in the top 30 for the first time in the UK for politics. Huge numbers this week. We're in the top 10 in Morocco, Singapore, Malaysia, New Zealand, and South Africa. You can download the MOATS podcast by scanning the QR code on your screen now. And don't forget to leave a review and rate it also. Zoya is in Rhode Island in the United States on the same subject, of course. Zoya, what would you like to say, ma'am?
Well, George, I just was curious if you had noticed a weird historical correlation, which is when Israel attacked on June 13th, we suddenly had all our newspapers talking about how this was Iran's Pearl Harbor. Well, the interesting thing is when the attack last night happened, technically speaking, it was in the early morning hours in Tehran when that happened. Operation Barbarossa started at 3:30 in the morning on June 22nd, on the same day, 1941. Soviet time.
They chose Barbarossa Day. I wonder if that was deliberate, Zoya.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because all of a sudden we're using Pearl Harbor and then celebrating apparently the Operation Barbarossa anniversary with an attack on Iran. But the weird thing is why are we putting ourselves in the boots of the fascists, the Axis powers that started World War II? Is somebody trying to replay World War II, but this time the Axis powers win?
Well, it's a good question. We're openly supporting open Nazis in the Ukraine. We have been doing so now for 3 years nearly. And we are certainly cool with the death camps in Gaza. We're certainly cool with the extermination camp that Gaza has become. So maybe we are morphing, maybe our countries are morphing into the very type of countries that it was our finest hour to defeat.
I hope not, but it's certainly looking that way.
You're right, Zoya. Thanks for that call from Rhode Island. Staying in the US, Abdi is in Minnesota. Let's hear from him. Abdi, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, George. How are you?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I'm good, thank you.
I want to actually start something that has been bothering me the whole week. Remember 20 years ago when you were debating with Christopher Hitchens, you have used an example that was like the chimney sweep, and you say no matter how much you fight with the chimney sweep, you can never come out clean.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember it well.
Yep, I would like you not to appear that, what should I call, tabloid TV host called Piers Morgan show anymore, to be honest with you.
Call him the phone hacker. No, I won't be going on that show anymore. He was keen to boast how much bigger he was than us, but we are actually very much bigger than him.
Like Donald Trump, for a second, I'm like, your show is better than his show. I'm like, think that again, dude. Think about what you're saying. He was a swammer, so that's number one.
Exactly.
So don't ever go to him. He's not worth your intelligence, and he's not someone who's at your level to even understand, to come close to it. Number two, remember Iraq, what happened to Saddam Hussein, how they treated him? This is exactly history repeating itself. I would advise Iranian government not to allow any more NWA, whatever the crap they call it, USA, CIA, whatever,
I think Abdi's talking about these inspectors, and we've lost them. Abdi, thanks for your kind words. I doubt very much if Iran will remain in the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They are fully entitled to withdraw from it now. I think it's Section 10 of the treaty gives any state the power to withdraw from the treaty in times of national emergency and threat to the security of their country. And I'm certain that that's the moment that we are at now. So I don't think that the spy-ridden IAEA will be back in any Iranian nuclear facility again. Some comments before the break. Amadou Dawson Barry says it's time for Russia, China, Pakistan, India, and all the other BRICS nations to join. Well, you can include India out because Indian airspace was used by the United States to carry out this act of terrorism. Elvis, LV Cam, sends £5 Thank you, Elvis. Attack on Iran was unprovoked, snuck in, killed its people, yet asked them not to retaliate. I guess international law only applies to some countries. You're right, Elvis. And Damascus sends $5 Thank you. A nation that cloaks ignorance in patriotism walks blindly towards its own decline. America is not exempt from the laws of history. Thank you. Alaura G sends $9 says Trump is a liar and a con, and J.D. Vance is a Thiel-owned Zionist shill. Thank you very much for that kind donation, Alaura. Terry loves Senegal. Don't we all love Senegal? Colonel Macgregor is the very best, a lovely, caring, knowledgeable man. He and Professor Morandi never stop talking about Gaza and the continued genocide. Very proud of both of them as our regular guests. And Colonel Macgregor is, of course, some generations back, a compatriot of mine. Let's take a quick break, and then it's Greg J. Stoker, big favourite on the Mother of All Talk Shows, activist, veteran, host of Colonial Outcasts podcast and State of Play on the inimitable Mint Press News. Well worth watching. It's coming up right after this. Stay tuned.
The airwaves. This savannah is a rigid dichotomy of fact and fiction. As Fisher says, the Twitter sphere where the slightest misjudgment can spell being cancelled. One species rules over the airwaves through its ability to adapt and survive in even the harshest environments. The George Galloway. the top cat in these parts. It is mostly active on Sunday evenings in Britain and mid-afternoon in the United States. It seldom roars during the day. Most notable for its wide variety of headdress, it protects these parts from the mainstream media. You can catch this fine specimen on the mother of all talk shows. Don't pick a fight with it. They've been known to bite back.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
So our poll tonight, will Trump take the US into Israel's war on Iran, now has 57,704 votes, heading, I think, towards yet another record. We seem to be breaking them every show now. You can vote on Telegram, on my Telegram, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. J Stoker, last time he was on, scored really big numbers. People were so impressed by the quality of his analysis. And many then started to listen up to his Colonial Outcast podcast and his work on Mint Press News with State of Play. He's a real star, and we're lucky to have him here. Greg, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. I think we were not alone in predicting that this was coming, but how was it for you? Did the earth move in your space, in your sphere, or is it much ado about nothing? Is it just a piece of theatre?
It does seem that way, because what did it accomplish? Like, from a military perspective, what did these strikes actually accomplish? They dropped combat tested some massive ordnance penetrators in an actual environment for the first time. Okay, great. But beyond that, you launched a massive stealth bomber operation that involved 150 plus aircraft. You had to have a deception wing, an actual main thrust effort, because, you know, the B-2s that were already on the base at diegogarcia, that bomber fleet was heavily surveilled. So they had to launch out of the middle United States. And for what? Trump's going to make an announcement tonight, 10 p.m. I'm kind of expecting George Bush era mission accomplished statement, claiming total victory. And there are some other points that I'd like to discuss about that. But right now, there's no real military purpose behind it. Obviously, it was telegraphed. The Russians knew about it. They probably told the Iranians because they just signed that increasing 20-year security relationship agreement. So what was this? Well, it was the U.S. giving political cover for Israel, while also setting in a potentially dangerous game of escalation with Iran. And of course, this brings in the emergence of the multipolar world, the security relationship, as I mentioned, with Russia, China. But Iran has to fall first. And what the U.S. generally wants to do, our strategy, is to isolate, contain, and strangle. So we're trying to do that with Iran, Russia, and China as well. And this all plays into the overall strategic footing of the United States Central Command and Indo-Pacific Command. So it's a piece of theater, but it sets the tone for a potential way to go to war with a casus belli. We just attacked their nuclear program. That's it. Trump even said in a tweet that this was not an act of war. So any sort of retaliation by the Iranian side on the U.S. fleet, on U.S. bases in the region, well, I was only 13 when we invaded Iraq, but all of this is sounding very familiar.
Well, imagine how familiar it feels to me, Greg, as someone who was on the political front line of that. This time, they didn't even give us the courtesy of a false flag operation or even a dossier justifying what they did. They just went and did it. And as you've just adumbrated, it's very difficult to see what has been achieved. So if nothing really was achieved, that must surely mean that there's more to come. Otherwise, Israel's going to go on being attrited in daily and nightly missile attacks from Iran, and Iran will continue with its nuclear enrichment. So there must be something more, no?
One flashpoint I'm looking at right now is, now that the Iranian parliament has voted to shut the Strait of Hormuz, if they actually do that, we're likely going to see U.S. naval involvement. And that's the huge potential flashpoint for escalation. The fleet, the U.S. fleets are protected by what's called the Aegis Defense System. It's kind of like an integrated air defense system that's been around for a while. It's had multiple generations. And it seemed to be formidable, but we've seen Iranian missiles be able to penetrate Israel's air defense network night after night after night. I think they're on the 19th round of strikes now from Iran to Israel. But even if they can't get through the fleets, the U.S. bases basically don't have a lot of air defense capacity at all. What we're hoping, because I think the Iranian leadership has been studies, obviously the U.S. government and how we do things. We're very bald-faced about it. It's not a complicated playbook. So direct involvement with U.S. forces, hopefully we don't see that because that would be more of an escalation to war. If they want to resist bald-faced American aggression, they should just keep attriting Israel. That's our proxy in the region. And I've been kind of like frustrated on social media by people who say that, we're going into this because like Trump's on the Epstein files, or we're doing this because we're driven by ideology, but it doesn't take into account imperialism or capitalism, which U.S. Americans, citizens especially, can't really have a conversation about. And I just want to state for the record, like, why I think the Iranian strategy is working is because Israel is just an extension of the U.S. empire. It's our military base there. We got one in Cyprus, but Israel's really the one to conduct adventurous wars and destabilization operations to reshape the region into vassal states that will allow us to exploit people, resources, and control like one of the most strategically important places on Earth. And again, to your going back to the original point, this is not just about Iran. This is about BRICS, the emerging multipolar world order. And now that there's a challenge, I think it's going to take a lot more time to mature and develop this multipolar front. But right now, we are the dying unipolar power. And now all the masks are off. The furniture has been moved off the stage. The curtain's down, and we just have imperial fascism. And so they're not even bothering, as you mentioned, they didn't even have the false decency to send Colin Powell in front of the United Nations Security Council with some yellow cake and like rile Congress up into bloodlust. No, they're just doing it, and it's going to have massive also domestic consequences as well.
Well, I'll come to those, and I'm very interested in your take on that. But before leaving the theater of conflict, let me make this point to you, that of course the Iranian parliament has voted unanimously to close the Straits of Hormuz, but this has to be signed off by Khamenei, the man that they threatened to kill, although not yet. I have my doubts that he will sign that off. I think that they will do what you and I have both exhorted now, to just continue attriting Israel, because Israel is the least popular that it has ever been in the United States. It was once a sine qua non that being a big beneficiary of Israel lobby cash guaranteed you political longevity in Washington. That's rapidly changing now. So my view would be that the Iranians should, and I hope will, not sprint for the finish. This is a long game, and the new world will be a process of a long labor. And the last thing you want to do during labor is something so extraordinary that brings the house down on top of you. Is that your take too?
Yeah, and we need to observe like the short-term thinking of U.S. Policymakers. You know, they struck Iran, and now no one in the administration. That's the sense I'm getting. I've been talking to people in Washington like all day, and ex-military guys as well, my colleagues who also do like military analysis on this. It doesn't seem like the command echelon actually knows what it wants to achieve or how to achieve it. So we're seeing that the CNN just reported that the U.S. is pressuring China to pressure Iran to not close the Strait of Hormuz. They don't have contingency plans for what's going on. No one really knows what's doing. And we know that like some of the driving forces behind this decision are not actually politically elected officials. So one of the big hawks surrounding this is General Michael Kurilla. He's Israel's most beloved U.S. general. He's in charge of Central Command. He fought in Panama, Gulf War, got shot in Mosul during the Iraq War. He's from my old unit's Ranger Battalion. And he is a huge ideologue and a hawk. He has gained a lot more political power because, especially with the Secretary of Defense, because he's like a war fighter. He's big, physically imposing. The Israelis call him Kurilla, the gorilla. He's really pushing for this, kind of overriding and really influencing the Secretary of Defense. And they wanted this attack to happen because it would happen under him, because he steps down in July, probably to go into an actual political position within the administration. So we're seeing that the Trump administration is also icing out anti-war, anti-interventionist voices like Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, who said just by going in front of the Senate and saying Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapons program. And the consequences of this are anyone's guess. For the moment, it's if you have a nuclear program, don't give it up. In fact, get nukes, because that's kind of the only deterrent that you have right now. You know, after Libya and after this absurd Operation Midnight Hammer, we've definitely become more at risk of a nuclear global security event now. I mean, I've even seen like water cooler talk and supposition that in order to stop Israel from potentially doing something nuclear, it's to actually make sure Iran has nukes. And this situation is incredibly dynamic. It's going to change rapidly over the next week, but it's literally insane. And if you think that this is some big master strategy, that wasn't my experience in the military. It's just from the outside looking in, and I only have access to open source information, definitely seems like they don't even know what they're doing or what the dimensions of this conflict are or are going to be. It's just flying by the seat of their pants. That's my impression.
Now, I said I'd come back home, as it were. What's the impact of all this on Trump's base, on his voters, and on the midterm elections looming?
Well, you know, I've spent today wasting time on social media fighting with both MAGA supporters and ex-Harris or old Harris supporters. So the MAGA movement's torn in general. You know, he platformed on this campaign of not necessarily isolationism, but like anti-globalization. They're concerned. A lot of the thought leaders are like concerned about this like transnational global elite that runs everything. And he's done other things that fly directly in the face of that, like handing out golden visas to people with $5 million in disposable cash. You know, Portugal had to end that program because all these foreigners were buying up all the properties and charging people exorbitant rent prices. But it's not just that, it's the war. People don't really understand why we're doing it. And there will be people in Trump's circle, his supporting his base, that will find a way to do mental gymnastics, and they will always support him forever. And likewise, we've seen also like the Democratic Party, the liberal voters also split, because some of them were like, hey, you know, if Harris was president, this wouldn't happen. This wouldn't have happened. And I was like, listen, guys, ABC just reported this morning that this strike package and these air exercises were actually done under the Biden administration. And so what we're trying to do going forward is people like try to teach people about these underwriting systems of capitalism and imperialism that necessitate these imperial wars. And it doesn't matter who's president. You know, people are up in arms within liberal circles about, hey, we need to impeach Trump for these interventionists. They violated the War Powers Act, bypassed Congress. And I'm just like, guys, Obama did that in Libya. He did it in Syria. Biden just did it in Yemen last year. So I think there's a lot of contradictions. There's a lot of floundering. I think we're at a cultural inflection point where people are starting to kind of really ask what's going on. Why do we keep getting into these wars on behalf of other people? And we're starting to see people on the political left and political right come together. And I'm hoping this could be a unifying event because it's so deeply unpopular.
Yeah, I was hoping that too. But on the subject of mental gymnastics, I mean, I follow closely what Bannon, for example, is saying and what his guests are saying in his Bannon's war room. Now, him, Bannon, Carlson, the Jack Posselbeck, they were totally against this attack. But as soon as it happened, don't know about Carlson, I haven't heard him yet, but the others, including Bannon, have fallen into line. They're now in the business of saying, no, it's not really a war. It's not a contradiction. He always said he would do this, and all the things that are the opposite of what they were saying in the run-up. So maybe even in his inner circle, there are signs of fracture, albeit disguised. I mean, where does it leave people like Tulsi Gabbard, for example? She's been basically thrown under the bus. What's Elon Musk's attitude? He has not evinced a single word about any of this. Just sketch for us what possible impact it might have on the ideologues within the Trump base, never mind the voters who will soon be going to the polls.
Well, first of all, guys like Steve Bannon, he toes the line, not necessarily because he loves Trump or actually believes what he's saying. He sees Trump as a vehicle to affect the kind of political change that he sees, that he wants to be realized within the United States. So he and his followers, and he'll get his followers to always back what's going on. I don't see a following happen with that part of the right-wing movement within the right-wing circles in America. Going to the polls, I mean, we can't separate these foreign wars from what's happening domestically. This is no longer the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war, the 20 years engagement in Africa, Central and West Asia. This is the material conditions of everyday Americans are continuing to degrade. Even ICE raids are becoming more and more increasingly unpopular. You know, ICE is almost bankrupt, but we're going to war again for what? I mean, there's so many issues that this is literally, I think, the worst time for the Trump administration. What we're seeing is disunity happen within the United States. And now that because we're bombing Iran, we're seeing actually, even with people who don't like the government, there's a rally around the flag event. And so no one knows where this ends. The policymakers driving this don't. I think there's going to be a huge Democratic surge next midterms, but most people would agree that we don't want another foreign war. And if the administration does it anyways, that will be interesting to watch social trends kind of morph and respond to that.
Sure will be. Greg Stoker, you didn't disappoint. Thanks very much for being with us again on the mother of all talk shows. Will Trump take the U.S. into Israel's war on Iran? 63,000 people have now voted. I think that is a record, but I'll be told if I'm wrong. You've still got 20 minutes to cast your vote. Will Trump take the US into Israel's war on Iran? Yes or no? I'll take a break. Then it's your calls all the way up to Gayatri's social media news roundup. Stay tuned.
There's a group of people in Twitter who are daily posting discussions about Gaza, Lebanon, what's happening, news updates, aid for Gaza, and trying to enlist the help of Jordan and France and any other regional entity that will help get more aid into Gaza and all of Gaza, all of Palestine, for everyone who suffers. So I want to request that everyone who is listening to this go to your local council meetings and peacefully request that their representatives at the local levels do this, because it works.
Thanks for the call, Pia, in Uruguay. I'm a free man of the city of San Francisco, awarded to me for my work on Palestine, on the steps of City Hall itself. So it was a particular delight for me that the San Francisco Council voted by 8 votes to 3 to demand a ceasefire. And that decision didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of campaigning to force the local authority representatives to vote.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
I stand corrected, guilty of hyperbole. Moi? Will Trump take the US into Israel's war on Iran, yes or no, is currently the second highest poll that we've ever had. The highest was 66,200 votes. This one has only 63,312. If you want to break that record, you want to have your say, get voting now on Telegram, on X, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. Let's go to Geneva, where Roland wants to talk about the subject. Go ahead, Roland.
Hey, hi there. Great show. Listen, I just have a question, and that is,
thank you.
Is it possible that Iran just needs to be reduced to rubble, since this was the only country able to prevent Israel from pushing out the Palestinians, take over Gaza, and ultimately the West Bank? The nuclear threat is just an alibi, like, remember Iraq. Should the Iranian government fall, that will be a bonus. What do you think?
Yes, but I don't believe that it will fall. I think it's got very powerful friends, and it has a highly militant political base. No one should underestimate the zealotry, the religious zealotry of Iranian Shia Muslims. There are millions upon millions of those who would be more than ready to fall into their graves in order to defend the Islamic Revolution. If you haven't seen those crowds, then I suggest that you look at them. Secondly, there's an additional layer of Iranian patriots who may or may not be religious, certainly may or may not be zealously religious. You won't see them on the Ashura parades and so on, but they are extraordinarily patriotic. As I think I've said before, forgive me if you're hearing this for the second time, I attended a conference in Iran once of Iranian expats, and I was stunned by and a little disquieted by the Iranian nationalism that was on display in that conference. I won't go into details, not while they're under fire, but put it this way. You don't have to be particularly religious to be fiercely patriotic, indeed nationalistic, about Persianism, Iranianism. They really think a lot of themselves and their civilization. And some of them don't fancy the other civilizations much, if you get my drift. And that layer is also ready to die to defend Iran. So if you put the patriots, the nationalists, together with the Islamic forces in Iran, I don't see how it can fall. It certainly cannot be occupied. I said 1 million. Ali, who's an Iranian in Leeds, said 1.5 million. Whether it's 1 million or 1.5 million, nobody has that many soldiers that they are prepared to put into Iran in order successfully to occupy it. So, Roland, I do not believe that the Iranian government will fall, that the system will fall. I don't believe that. Go ahead, sir.
No, I think I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But keeping the war in Iran, and as you can see, that the Israelis are increasing their attacks against the Palestinians in Gaza. I was just thinking, keep the war in Iran. That allows us to finish the business that we were starting a couple of years ago. Anyway, I hope you're right. And
well,
I think
Israel is killing people in Gaza every day before this Iran war, and no doubt after it. They're more likely to be stopped or at least slowed by the ongoing daily and nightly attrition that the Iranian missiles are bringing to bear on the genocidal state. So I think that Israel will kill as many Palestinians as it can kill. It goes without saying that if it is busy elsewhere and having to worry about elsewhere, it's likely to inhibit it rather than enhance it. Thanks, Roland, in Geneva. Big shout out to tonight's top donors who've been on the moats.tv website since we came on air. Derek Blackmore, Douglas McFarland, Kenneth Morris, Norman Bell, and Vin Ferguson. Thank you very much, all of you, for your superb generosity. Please check out the moats.tv website and leave a donation. Let's go down under to Australia, where Syed in Australia, in Sydney, wants to talk about Iran and the US. Go ahead, Syed.
Yes, hello from down under, as you say. First of all, George, thank you very much for all that you do, all that you've done. Secondly, it's no contest. Yours is far bigger than Pierce's. It has to be bigger because you're the only one that I've seen so far, between you two, that has consistently stood up for what is right rather than what is popular, which is what Pierce seems to do. He keeps flip-flopping from one position to the other and panders to the powers that be rather than stand up for what is right. So therefore, I'd like to congratulate you and thank you for being who
brother.
You are. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to discuss a little bit about touch on some of the issues that you've been raising tonight regarding Iran. As you quite correctly said, regime change will not be affected in Iran through bombing. It doesn't matter how much you degrade Iranian infrastructure, how many people you kill. The more you do that, the more stubborn the Iranian people will get. And they're rallying around the flag, their nationalism, and their patriotic nature will come to bear. People who don't know this are people who are ignorant of Iran's history, such as the like of Tedcruz, who was rather comically exposed by tuckercarlson.
He's ignorant of everything. He's not a great advert for Princeton, is he, Syed?
Not at all. And that's another thing. I feel really saddened to learn, is this really the state to which the American educational system has fallen to? Honestly, are these people who are currently in the political system, whether it be in the Senate or in the cabinet or in the very White House, are these really the best people that the United States has to offer? Not just their own people, but the world? Honestly? It really saddens me. Anyway,
well, it looks, I'm afraid it is, but then you could say the same about Australia, and you certainly could say the same about Britain. Is this the best that we can produce?
Say that, honestly, I don't want to take up too much of your time. The topic at hand is Iran and what's happening in Iran these days. But you're absolutely correct. It should be said across the board. I think the Western world in general is deliberately deliberately trying to pander to the lowest common denominator and keep people as ignorant as possible and try to divert their attention by, 3-minute TikToks maximum and try to...
Well, that's definitely working if that's their project side. Just because of the hour, I cut you short, but I think you're an interesting man. Don't be shy to call again. Ted Cruz, who's made a political career out of being a Bible belter, hasn't even read the Bible. He's quoting things from the Bible that aren't in the Bible. And when asked where, he's giving Old Testament references when he's a Roman Catholic. We believe in the New Testament. That covenant is the one that people adhere to in the Christian world. And even the misquotation from the Old Testament that he gave to Tucker Carlson was wrong. The promise of the promised land was given to the prophet Abraham. The prophet Abraham is the father of monotheism, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim. It wasn't given to Benjamin Netanyahu, a political figure in a state that is only 77 years old. It was given 3,000 years ago to the people who embraced monotheism in the form of the prophet Abraham. Now, if somebody whose entire political living wearing the Bible on their sleeve hasn't even read it, of course, he may be reading a Baudelaireized form of the Bible. Perhaps he is. Irene Serrano says the biggest Jewish community after Israel is in Iran. Indeed it is, Irene. Look back at Gayatri and I and our visit to one of the 100 synagogues fully functioning, unguarded, for there is no need to guard them. Synagogues in Iran. Chris Murphy sends £9.99. Thank you, Chris. In my opinion, Israel is in full control. It's genius. They take billions from the American economy and spend a few $100 million to own Congress. It's a perpetual money and power machine. And you can't handle the truth says, how is your Trump so-called peace POTUS you've been promoting since last year going? Are you still going to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize? No, no, and no. I've not been promoting him unless you count militating against Kamala Harris. That I definitely did. That I would again tomorrow. But no. In fact, the most ridiculous statement of the week was Pakistan saying they were going to nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. So you can't handle the truth. If you are not a gutless coward, pick up the phone now and call the show. And you and I can have that out. Unless you're in China, if you get my drift. Jack Klugman says, meanwhile, the IDF did 150 trying to get food today in Gaza. Would you trust an Israeli to take your cat for the weekend? And Anthony Wedgwood says, pity you fell for Trump's lies during the run-up to the election. Should have listened to the likes of Chris Hedges and Abby Martin. This is clearly a coordinated line, maybe being coordinated from a certain university in China. And of course, it's absolutely false. I advocated for the Green Party candidate, our good friend, Dr. Jill Stein, from the first until the last in the election. I said, if anyone asked me, if it's not Jill Stein, who would be worse, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? I said Kamala Harris, and I would say exactly the same today. So quit lying about me, Anthony Wedgwood, as if that's your name. Shanaz is in The Hague on the update to the peace summit, which is being counterposed against the NATO summit. Shanaz, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
Thank you, George. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all your viewers. Absolutely amazing, George. We saw thousands and thousands of protesters ahead of the so-called peace summit. We're not quite sure if it's actually going to go ahead now. It's supposed to be a 2-day affair. I think it's we've been told locally that it's been reduced to 2.5 hours because Trump cannot last longer than that. And that was just before his his attacks on Iran. So people are not quite sure, but we saw thousands and thousands of protesters from across the globe, George. I mean, there was a sister from Iran. There were people from across Europe, from Pakistan, from Tehran, from UK, Belgium, France, you name it. I mean, we just had to walk across, me and Lucas, and we could identify people and their nationalities in terms of their political background. So there was an array of people, which was absolutely amazing.
That's good. That's good. And who's the organizer of this? Is it Conti, the 5-star fellow from Italy?
What you mean? The actual anti?
The march that saw pictures of it today. Was he at the front of that?
I didn't see him. There was a number of organisations. We were trying to get to the bottom actually who's behind it, but we believe that it was a group of people that actually put the rally together. So it was good to see.
So you're going ahead, whether the NATO summit lasts for 2.5 hours or 2 days, you're going ahead with all your activities for peace, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're going ahead. We're speaking to the local activists, we're speaking to the commentators and the journalists. One thing that interesting that came across was the fact that we asked several people the question, does it actually make a difference? I mean, of course, we had the massive, the Palestinian march in London today. And what people have said is we've got to do something. We've got to have hope. And when I spoke to the Iranian sister, I asked her, I said, how do you feel? And she goes, I feel angry because my home was being attacked. And I did go on to have the conversation with her, but does it take an attack on your home before you do something? Because we are seeing the killing of children every single day. We've seen the occupation of Kashmir. We saw what happened in Iraq. We saw what happened. What's happening in Gaza. It's not as you know more than I do, George. It's not something that's been happening all for a few days or 4 weeks. It's been happening for decades. No. But when your own home is attacked, then that's when a difference. When you feel differently. And what shocked me more was the fact that when we were talking to people, they said, whatever we think of the aggression, some people call Putin an aggressor. Some believe that, in The Hague, we're talking about the Supreme Court, that he should be somebody that's tried for war crimes. That itself was shocking. But then on the same hand, what people were saying was that these 45 heads of states, every single one of them should be held accountable for being complicitly involved.
You should keep them there. You should put them behind bars. There's actually a prison in The Hague attached to the International Criminal Court. I've seen it. I don't know if it would hold them all, but you could get the worst offenders definitely behind bars. Well done, Shanaz. Excellent report there on the activities in The Hague in the Netherlands. Now, from there, why not? We'll go next door to Belgium, where Samuel has a point of view. Let's hear it. Go ahead, Samuel.
Yes, George. The last time we spoke, that was 2012 in the revolution in Syria. Now we're here again talking about Iran. I think Israel is attacking Iran to see the counter-response, allowing them to see Iran's military capabilities and weaponry, like drone interception, things like that. What do you think about it?
Well, I'd rather measure Iran's military capability by the 19 waves of True Promise 3 that they are landing down the chimneys of some of the most important institutions in Israel. That shows to me quite a highly developed level of military technology being fired across 1,500 kilometers. What do you think?
Yeah, we saw it. They have big problems now, and the big daddy has to help now. The U.S. So that was it, George. I just wanted to see how you think about it.
It's very good of you to call, Samuel, and I'll try and remember when we met in 2012. I don't know who I met at 12:30 last night, but I'll do my best to recall you. Thank you for calling the show. Now, I told you it wasn't a record poll. It is now officially a record. 67,814 people have voted. Will Trump take the US into Israel's war on Iran? Well, on Telegram, 21% said no. On X, Twitter, 35% said no. On YouTube community poll, 28% said no. And on the YouTube stream, only 15% said no. So, by my reckoning, 3/4 of 67,814 voters say that Trump will take the US into Israel's war on Iran. Now, you may know that Gayatri and I now have another portal called Hats Off. Some people have said to me they find it difficult to find it. That's because there's 4 Fs. So, Hats Off. That's 4 Fs. There it is there. Hats Off. 4 Fs on Twitter. Make sure that you follow us, because Gayatri is doing a lot of video work on there. She's finding very interesting pieces of video and other reportage, and we together put some thought and words into the interpretation of that. So my own Twitter is very largely just words. I like to think they're good words. They certainly get a lot of circulation. I'm amazed, astounded at the numbers that are viewing my tweets nowadays. Thank you, Mr. Elon Musk, for that. But Gayatri is adding value in this Hats Off. So make sure you follow Hats Off with 4 Fs. Let's go to Leicester in England, where Khalid wants to talk about the US. Khalid, go ahead.
Hi, George. Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, I think that the strike that the US has made, or Trump has made, you can say, is illegal under international law. I mean, look, it wasn't a preemptive strike. It was more like a precautionary strike, which is illegal under international law. Mm-hmm. I don't think Iran has...
Question is, Khalid, who cares about international law? Certainly not the international community. They don't care a fig about international law. Or Netanyahu and Gallant and the others, they'd be in The Hague right now.
True, that's very true. I mean, realistically, if we look at what's on paper, they should have been long gone, truly, because what their actions, and even they've stated what they're going to say. Netanyahu and his crazy bunch. Mad bunch, you can say, what they've been doing.
We've got a Prime Minister who's supposedly a King's Counsel, and he can't even answer the question, was the Israeli sneak attack on Iran against international law? He won't even answer it. And as you know, our Prime Minister said that Israel was within its legal rights to cut off food, water, electricity, medicine to the people of Gaza. Well, if that's international law, the law's an ass, Khalid.
So, George, I think, look, first of all, Israel is carrying out the Yinon plan and the Plan Dalet, their expansionist, evil plan that is to expand Israel, take over Gaza, West Bank, and expand it even parts of Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, which they're bombing on a regular basis anyway. And I think anybody who gets in their way, they make these excuses up like the 7th of October, even on the 7th of October, the Hannibal Directive was applied, as we hear from the IDF soldiers themselves. So the thing is, look, these are using an excuse to carry out their plan. Anyone who gets in their way, basically making an excuse to bomb them like they've done to Iran. And this is what this is, the way I look at it, you know. And I think this like you said, international law is only applied, or should I say, for example, even as far as I think yesterday in the UN, the Israeli spokesperson was stating that Iran has committed a war crime when they bombed the hospital. And that's laughable. How many hospitals they bombed in Gaza? You know, this is absolutely preposterous. And this is double standards.
Hospitals they destroyed. Yeah, you're right. And so, you know, it's lipstick on the pig. The lipstick's off. The pig is an ugly pig indeed. Jethro is in London. Might be the last call. You never know. I don't know how much of a report Gayatri's got. Jethro in London on the US and Iran. Go ahead, Jethro.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Galloway. Good evening, sir. Can you hear me clearly, my friend?
Very clearly. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. I'll keep it short because you've been in a long time. But yeah, but that's happened in the Middle East. Unfortunately, is atrocious. I mean, in your opinion, you know you've got great intellect, a great sagacity, and and great foresight. I mean, how far this could proceed? Because if Russia and China back up Iran kinetically, will that be World War III? I mean, what we don't want is kinetic escalation between China and Russia. You know, even though America deserves a bloody nose, and Israel too. Also, what they've done in the past, the last 18 months, is absolutely demonic. But in your view, if China and Russia engage kinetically, what's going to happen there? What do you think is going to happen to be the outcome of that?
Well, I don't think they will engage kinetically, short of a nuclear attack. I think if the US or Israel were to use nuclear weapons against Iran, then both Russia and China would have no choice, really, but to begin military involvement. We wouldn't be expecting anything from the United Nations. We wouldn't be expecting anything from the international courts. We couldn't even count, frankly, on a couple of disapproving editorials in Western liberal newspapers. The Guardian would probably find a way to back it. So the only response would have to be kinetic. If a weapon that has not been used since 1945, August, and the lesson of Hiroshima and Nagasaki had been so unlearned that a nuclear weapon was used against Iran, that would change everything. But short of that, I don't expect either Russia or China to become involved kinetically. There are other friends of Iran, I don't want to name them, who may even now be beginning to get involved more directly than Russia and China have done or will do, short of nuclear weapons. But China and Russia are acutely aware that if there's a fire burning in your neighbor's house, if you don't put it out, it will soon set fire to your house. And I think that both the Russians and the Chinese know that the fire unleashed on Iran is ultimately intended for them, because they are, after all, if Iran is the hinge of the new world order, then Russia and China are the two pillars without which it cannot be built. Thanks, Jethro. Let's time for one more call. Mohammed is in Switzerland. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. George, thank you for allowing me again.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for allowing me to appear in your show. It is global. It is global. It's not local. So you're not the property of soul of one British or nationals of Britain. Sure. You are property of the soul of millions of people around the world. So that said, I want to point. The last time I called you, I said about wars. Then I was quickly analyzing all those years that I suffered. I'm originally from Afghanistan. So I suffered. My grandfather also suffered from the imperial time where he fought against them. My father, my grandfather, and also I suffered a lot. So the point, what I'm trying to make is that the peace-loving people of Europe, especially USA, especially UK, has to get awakened, like getting up, understanding the cycle of wars. Who is causing wars? So it's the politicians who are just trying to drain their money from their pockets for their own benefit.
Yeah.
For this industrial facilities who is trying to just produce bombs and powders and guns. Do we use guns for planting a tree? No. It's just pulverizing money and burning money for nothing.
Yeah.
The last thing I would like...
We don't even have steel to make guns, Mohammed. We have to buy the steel from somebody else. That's how reduced we are. Sorry to cut you off, but I've got my good wife next to me. Do keep calling, Mohammed. Be delighted to talk to you again. Will Trump take the US into Israel's war on Iran? I think we can close this poll now, Gayatri. 69,255 votes cast, a record in all the years we've been doing this. What else is rattling?
Yes, the war is on. It seems that China may have made a mistake in printing those MAGA caps. It should have been MAGA, right? MAGA, make Israel great again. Yes, America first, Trump said, but most of us missed his second part, which he was whispering. But Israel firstest, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's his dedication for Netanyahu, when all of us had this suspicion that he actually doesn't really like him.
No, I don't think he likes him.
Exactly.
He's doing what the American empire wants him to do.
So, peace is management, war is leverage, and conflict is currency. This is the battle is on. The war is on. This is the battle of the superpowers, of the hegemony, all the world hegemony. So, we are witnessing dangerous times, and we feel like us who are protesting against the wars. On this day, actually, all the way in 1633, Galileo was accused of heresy by the Inquisition because he was supporting this Copernican system in which he said that the sun is the center of the solar system. That's how we kind of feel, don't we? Like when we are speaking the truth and we are being damned for it, like as if it's a heresy.
We're not yet on the rack. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Everybody now knows that Galileo was right. Everyone will one day know that the Galloways were right, but not yet. There's a surprising number of sheep out there in Britain and in the US, and I presume in non-English speaking Western countries also. You're from the Netherlands. What's the attitude there?
No, of course, we got lots of protests against as well. But what do? The Netherlands is the same template as here. We've got even a war situation in which we don't even have a government at the moment since Wilders.
All the parties in Britain, all of them, except the Workers' Party, are backing Israel and Trump. And all their politicians are tweeting identical tweets, including reform. Nigel Farage, he says he's against the boats, but the boats are now going to be more full than ever by more war in the Middle East, which makes you think, is he really against the boats? Don't you think?
Well, he's shown his true colors for sure. Funny enough, we have an email about that from Stephen Mulholland saying, strange how Nigel Farage hasn't condemned the people on the boats crossing the Mediterranean. Did any of them rape women and kill children in Gaza? They are fleeing from the tyrant Netanyahu.
This is the people going to... If I was in Cyprus or in Greece now, I'd be a bit worried about whether these Israeli refugees from the war they started are going to set up camp there and claim that Cyprus and Greece are theirs.
Yes, exactly.
Because that's exactly what happened in Palestine.
Yeah, exactly. And now they're all arriving along the Mediterranean. And they're not really received with welcome, warm embrace or anything. The locals have shown up at the airports with Palestinian flags and chanting Free Palestine. So more elbow power to them.
No, of course, they're only escaping by sea because Netanyahu has closed the airport to them.
Yeah.
Only tourists can fly out of Ben Gurion. Yeah. The Israelis are locked in.
Imagine
human shields,
in their
hostages.
In their bunkers. I read somewhere one of the bunkers underneath a bus station can hold up to 20,000.
What?
What?
As long as they're not black or Indian.
Asian or yes.
Have you seen some of these pictures from the air raid shelters?
Yes.
Well, they're literally telling black people this is for Jews only. Even though you can be black and a Jew, they're not even checking that point.
No, exactly.
People are being kicked out because they look too Arab.
So Shanaz was calling in from The Hague, where she is right now.
Yeah.
So the Netherlands upside down at the moment, all in preparation for this NATO war summit rather than peace summit. It's taking place around the Peace Palace, but it's all about war. And they've all agreed on the 5% increase on defense budget. But I've just read in the last few minutes that Spain has struck a deal that they will be exempt from that 5%. So Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez seemed to have achieved that.
What about the British Prime Minister?
Oh no.
How can Britain afford 5% war spending? We can't even afford 2.5% war spending. The country is going to the dogs. And he's going to commit himself, is he, to 5%?
Yes. So 9 years ago, tomorrow, was the Brexit referendum. What did we vote for?
Yeah. How have we Brexited? We're doing exactly the same as all of the European governments on everything. Yeah. So in what way did we Brexit?
No, as you say, Brexit was sufficient, but not enough.
It was necessary, but not sufficient. Yeah,
sufficient,
exactly.
Necessary. Sorry for that. I just want to close on this news from about kneecap because Mo Kara, one of the members of this Irish band, he did appear at Westminster Magistrate Court last Wednesday, standing room only, because this is how much publicity they achieved. He arrived there with his colleagues in a Palestinian kafia, making their statement clear. He was there to stand for, because he was accused of terrorism.
Terrorism?
Yeah, but it was a very, very brief court hearing, and he was released on unconditional bail, not to appear until August, because he insisted he would speak in Irish, and of course they couldn't find an Irish translator. Can you believe it?
Wonderful.
Yeah, so Prime Minister Starmer commented that kneecap shouldn't really appear on the big Glastonbury festival because it wouldn't be appropriate.
I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I'd take my musical tips from Keir Starmer. He's probably a Perry Como fan. Not that Perry wasn't a good crooner, but you wouldn't turn up to Glastonbury to see him. I mean, this is now entering the realms of the absurd. You've got the Prime Minister and his opposite number,
yes,
if we can remember our name,
Kemi
Badenoch. Both of them have written to Glastonbury telling them that it's inappropriate for a rap band to appear at Glastonbury. I do hope the Glastonbury authorities hold firm.
My favorite chant, which was screamed outside the court, was more blacks, more dogs, more Irish, Mo Kara.
Yeah, very good, Mo Kara. Excellent. Excellent young man, a role model that all of our children could be proud of. It is extraordinary. It's a sign of how palsied the British establishment has become. Did they learn nothing? I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg's father, William Rees-Mogg, Sir William, late Sir William Rees-Mogg, was once the editor of The Times. When the British state tried to prosecute now Sir Mick Jagger, for possession of a single cigarette with some marijuana in it. And in the Times, in an august editorial that I commend to today's generation of politicians, Rees-Mogg said, this is using the wheel to crush a butterfly, and the headline was, crushing a butterfly on a wheel. Now, Mick Jagger wasn't then or now a particularly pretty butterfly, and you may not be a rap fan and love Mo Cara and Kneecap, but the same principle applies. The state crushing a butterfly on a wheel is never a good look. The British state cannot come out ahead in this. Abandon this prosecution, you fools, you idiots. All you've done is put up the record sales. Do they still have records?
Concerts.
Downloads, uploads, whatever it is you call them, of Kneecap. Now, last word from you, Gayatri, on hats off.
Yeah, as you said, 4 Fs, just look it up on Twitter, or X as we call it nowadays. Just that, on that platform for now.
Final vote on the poll, look, 69,000.
So we broke the record.
Oh, we didn't just break it, we broke it by 2,000. 2,035 or 30.
Next week again.
It's absolutely extraordinary. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks for, in advance, for you spreading the word about this extraordinary show. 11.9 million viewers watched the last 2 episodes. Let's hope that we can repeat that with this and the next. So it's good night from me and Gayatri. We're off to get chips whilst we still can. My 5-year-old girl heard a shotgun in the woods earlier today and cuddled up to me and asked me, Daddy, is the war coming here? Well, is it? Thanks for watching.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Go get 'em, George.